Okay, Alistair McLeod. I was listening to him on Silver Doctors, and they got a new show on there. It's really good. I'll tell you what, he pointed out and he come across a point that I overlooked. I've got a lot of shows that I've done quite recently, and I mentioned about how that when this next crisis hits, it's going to be a terrible magnitude, worse than 2008 even. And that these too big to fail banks will go down if something's not done. But I've also mentioned that the Fed will never let that happen, that they're going to come into the rescue. And he can see the same thing. He's talking about the same thing here. Let me hold my phone up for a second. And I got him recorded on here now. Now listen to what he says.
Let's assume the Fed, for example, contacts the White House and says, look, we've got a problem. We need to deal with this. Bail-ins are not going to work. We need to get authorization to bail out the whole banking system, just as we did back in 2009. So,
okay, did you hear that? He realizes that they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to bail out the entire banking system, just like they did back in 2008. If they don't, the whole system is going to lock up, and they will be held responsible when there's massive casualties. And they're not going to have that because they would be held responsible. Can you realize they would be the villains? They don't ever want to be the villains. They are not going to be the villains. They are going to be the heroes. And so in order for them to be the heroes in all of this, they have to recover the system. And they only have one tool that they can recover the system with. It's very simple. Money. They have to inject money into the system, just like in 2008. And believe me, they will do this. But Alistair McLeod brought up a point here, and it's terrifying, that I never thought of. Right? I realized, and I talked about it in my videos over the last 2 weeks. If you watch my videos, I say how that when the Fed does this meetings, they're going to have meetings, and this is what's going to solve the situation. When the Fed and the other central banks, the Bank of Japan and so on, they're going to solve the situation. They're going to come out, and they're going to be the heroes. There's going to be microphones everywhere, and I've laid this out, and how they're going to then bring the money out, and that's going to cure the problem. But that's going to send us into the hyperinflation. But it's going to create an economic stimulus everywhere, and we're going to have a real recovery after that. Because when that money hits the system, it's going to be like a real recovery. We're going to have a real recovery, new jobs and everything. It's going to stimulate the economies, and they're going to be held as the heroes for saving the world. But Alistair McLeod brought up something that I never thought of. Now, I know that they're going to shut the system down to try to solve these problems. And by shutting the system down, it's going to give them time to have their meetings. It's going to give them time to react. It's going to give us time to react. It's going to give everybody a chance to cool down, to cool their jets by shutting the system down. They're going to basically shut down the stock market. They're going to shut down the banking system. They're going to shut down everything. And so during that period in time, you're going to want to have some cash, because cash is going to work really good during that period in time. If you don't have cash, you might just go hungry. And I am not exaggerating, because it might last like a month or 3 weeks or something, when there's going to be, the system's going to be basically on hold. But he brought up something I never thought of, and I'm going to get to it now. This is going to work okay to get America restored, the American banking system. There's probably only going to be a few banks that are in trouble, and they will be fixed during this period in time. When these meetings convene, they're going to prop up these particular banks in America that are in trouble. And after these meetings are convened and they release the money, and we're on quantitative easing 4, and we're on helicopter money, and we're on social programs galore, people are going to be fat and happy, because they're going to release all kinds of money to the people. They're probably going to, one of the things they might do during helicopter money is they might literally take your social In Canada, it's a social insurance number. In the United States, it's the social security number. They might take that number and they can look back and they can see all the taxes you've paid over the years. They might refund them all to you in a lump sum as part of the helicopter money program. They're probably going to put a social program in that's called Basic Income for All in America and in Canada. And they'll probably push that out as part of the package deal in order to get the economy stimulated. And it'll probably be like $30,000 to $40,000 a year for everyone who has a pulse. You think that I'm joking about this stuff? I'm not joking. It's already in the works. They're already planning for these things. They're already pushing out test programs. In Ontario, one of our provinces up here, they're pushing out a test program for a basic income. I'm not joking about this. It sounds unreal, but it is real. It's very real. And these are social programs to get money to the people, to cure the economy. This is Keynesianism at its finest. This is Keynes. So this is what they will do, because Keynes is their god, and they will follow these programs if they need to. When they're pushed, they become doves. Right now they're on the hawkish side. The Fed's on the hawkish side. They're all on the hawkish side. As long as they can get away with it, they'll stay on the hawkish side. But believe me, when push comes to shove, they're going to turn into the worst doves you ever seen in your life. They're going to dump the money on the whole thing. But Alistair MacLeod brought out a point. This will work in America, and it'll solve our problems in the short term. It'll solve our problems. So we're not going to go through the SHTF in America. We're probably going to have a bit of trouble. Like it might be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of the grocery stores only taking cash. And you not being able to get cash out of your bank account. So what are you going to buy stuff with? You're going to be breaking your kid's piggy bank in order to buy some rice during this period in time, if you haven't stored any away already. In America. Because they're not going to take your credit card and they're not going to take your debit card because the banks are going to be frozen up. And you're not going to be able to access your bank account. This is why I've been saying, put your $5 bills away. They'll work really good during this period in time. Right? Now, here in America, they're not going to let this progress too far before they come in to the rescue, the Fed. But they're going to do the same thing in Japan. And the UK should be able to do the same thing because they have one central bank that's centralized and it's the power. But this is very important, what Alistair MacLeod, the point that he brought out. And I'm going to play it for you right now on here. And I want you to listen to what he's got to say because this is very, very important. Okay, I'm going to play it right now, the excerpt.
I think that there is enough flexibility in the American system for that to happen. Probably also in the UK system. I wonder how it's going to work in the Eurozone. Because you've got the ECB having overall responsibility for the whole thing, but you've got national central banks all around Europe within the Eurozone who have to comply with their own legal requirements. I think it's going to be, I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm just seeing that there is a potential problem there.
Well, the British are famous for understatement or understating things. When he says, I can see there's a potential problem there, he means that a meltdown. Now, not for the United States. They'll be able to get things back up and running again. And so will the United Kingdom because they have one central bank. And the central bank will be able to print money and inject it into the system. But in Europe, they got all these little central banks here, there, and everywhere that fighting all the time over what they're going to do and what their policy is going to be. And by the time they get around to making the policy and getting it to be effective, they are going to quite literally be in a meltdown state all through Europe. Not in the UK, not in America, not in Japan, and these other countries that are affected by this crisis, because this is going to be a crisis of mostly of the West. I believe. The Western countries, this financial crisis. This is going to be terrible because the United Kingdom, not the United Kingdom, but the European Union is going to melt down just like the rest. But they don't have the tools in place. They don't have one central bank to fix it. They got all of these separate countries in this union, this European Union, and they're all going to be in a state of chaos. So now I can see who might really have the shift, who might really have the Mad Max. Not here in America, and not in the, and this is a shocker to me. This is a shocker to me, and it should be to you guys too, that's watching this program. But he is absolutely right. And you guys should go over to Silver Doctors and listen to what he's got to say over there. He's absolutely right about this. It's the European Union who are going to be taken by surprise in all of this, and their member states are all of a sudden going to melt down financially just like the rest of us, but they're not going to have what they need to prop up their banking system and get it back up and running again and make it solvent. And that banking system in that area, the banks in Italy, Spain, Portugal, and all these countries in that area, in that block, including Germany perhaps, oh my goodness, including Germany perhaps, are just going to melt down into a giant blob of absolutely being useless to prop up their banking system, and their banks completely melt down, and no way of getting it back up and running again. It's such a large area. Who's going to supply them with food? If they're just-in-time delivery systems break down for that large area and all those countries within that zone, who's going to rescue them? Is Putin going to rescue them? They're not going to be able to rescue themselves. Are they going to look to Britain to rescue them? A little island? Okay, Britain's powerful, but they've basically they've been trying, quite seriously, the European Union and the boys in Brussels have been trying to hamstring Britain for quite a while now. You know, who's going to rescue them? If all of those countries within that European Union bloc just basically collapse into chaos, and their just-in-time delivery systems break down, and they haven't got any food, they haven't got any water, they got people panicking in the street, it's going to be it would be something. It could melt down into something like we've never seen before. At least the rest of the world would probably be up and running, and we could try to send supplies and stuff to them. But there's such a big area, and there's so many countries there involved, that if their entire banking system were to melt down the entire region, it could disintegrate into some sort of a weird chaos situation over there. And it might take a long time to actually get it back up and restore everything so that everything's back up and running again. So right now, they're going through some sort of a little bit of an economic, I wouldn't even call it a recovery, but a little bit of a plus in their economic system. They're a little bit better than they were, but all of that could disintegrate so quick in a massive stock market crash in the West over here, because interest rates are climbing too high. The bond yields are going too high. And that's what they're doing. And the Fed's pushing them there. So the Fed, they're going to be fine because they've already got their plan in place. They're going to come into the rescue. They're going to be the heroes after they create this situation. But the after effects could be spreading to the European Union. Okay, so listen, thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next show. Bye.